There are no baby hairs in this area, and that's kind of a giveaway that the hair had shed. On average, normally you'll lose 100 to 150 hairs per day. We would expect there's no reason for her not to be able to regrow hair.
Dr. Ray Nettles is redefining hair and hormone health with data-driven precision, transforming patients through custom biochemical insights. Get ready for a conversation about real results and lasting health.
Welcome back to another session of Q&A with Dr. Ray. How are you doing this fine Monday?
All right. Hello, Tracy from Stop and Regrow. Great to see you today. I'm doing great. As always, today better than yesterday, and I hear tomorrow is better than today, so we're sticking around.
Sounds great. So today, doctor, we have a female case to talk about. And so she is a 28-year-old boutique fashion designer who lives in the Palisades, California, but originally from the East Coast, Connecticut. So when she came in originally to see us, she had been noticing that her hair was thinning for years, right after high school, in fact, so about 10 years. She's 28.
Okay.
And she has been trying to treat it herself using over-the-counter shampoos, oils, supplements, and even Rogaine for women, but really without any success. However, what brought her in now was that she did notice very recently, right before she came in, a lot more shedding, handfuls actually. And that lasted about 2 weeks. She's not a smoker. She does have wine 1 to 2 times a month, and she works a lot, 60 hours a week in her fashion business, which she runs. Not a lot of time for the gym, but she does try and eat healthy, and she home preps for all her meals in order to help with that. And one thing that did happen before she came to see us is that she had a 5-year relationship with a nice young man from Chicago, but he decided to cheat on her. That ended about 6 months ago. So obviously that was a very stressful time for her. And she did notice that was when the rapid thinning really kind of took off and took hold.
Okay.
But luckily for her hairstylist was one of the hairstylists that we have trained on how to identify the different patterns of thinning and who knew about our program. And they referred her to us as the perfect place where she could determine what actually was the root cause or causes of her hair loss, because we know for women, obviously, that sometimes there are multiple, in particular, men too, but more women. And she came to us to really understand and get to the bottom of it. And of course, the blood work is what enables us to do that.
All right. Very good case. So we've got a female hair loss case from Los Angeles, but originally from Connecticut. Sounds like we've got a stressful event that could have precipitated the rapid hair shedding, but it also sounds like a 10-year chronic history of some hair thinning. So it sounds like we've got a combination of genetic as well as the autoimmune type of areata hair loss. So we would next move from the history, we would move to the patterns. So we would look at the pictures, and if they're virtual, they can take the pictures and send them in to us. We have patients in 50 states and 6 continents, so all over Earth. As long as people can send us the pictures and then get to a lab, we can help resolve it. Wow, this is very obvious. I'll get my pen out and we'll do some drawing. I remember this case for sure. What a nice young lady that we met. I think this was about 2 years ago-ish.
Yeah,
we
2023.
saw her. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the zones 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3. Also zone 4. And then here's zone 5. So you can tell no problems with zone 5. We've got a lot of really nice thick hair. And in zone 4, we've got a lot of really nice thick hair, but it's quite obvious that there are areas of hair that are missing. And this is very symmetrical. A lot of times when we see the areata type of hair loss, it's not this symmetrical. And if I remember correctly, when we looked around her scalp, I think we found another circle back here. Okay. But this is obvious. When you look under the microscope, there are no baby hairs in this area. And that's kind of a giveaway that the hair had shed, but not thinning, right? Thinning hair, well, there'd still be hair, right? It's pretty obvious. But when the hair is missing, the hair fall, that's a different type of hair loss. So she noticed that 6 months ago. So it was obvious that we're dealing with an autoimmune response. And then we looked for evidence of any genetic hair thinning. And then I'll remove this for us, and then I'll change the color. And then we're looking for areas of hair thinning. And then you notice right in here, before that area of hair loss, you see that this hair is a lot thinner than the hair behind it. So this looks like what would have been happening over 10 years. The hair was a nice hairline way up front, and it started receding backwards. So same thing through here. Their hair is receding backwards. Over here on zone. So this is zone 1. This is zone 2. This is zone 3. Same thing. These hairs are thinning backwards, but then we got an area. 6 months ago, she found out the love of her life was doing something he should not be doing. And she got very stressed out about it because they were going to start a family together soon. And now she's got to restart that program. So that led to this rapid hair loss where she can lose up to thousands of hairs per day, up to about 2 weeks or so. Just think if you lose 1,000 hairs a day. So on average, normally you'll lose 100 to 150 hairs per day. And that's just normal hair shedding because you have how many thousand hairs on top of your head? You have 100,000 hairs, and then they have to be replaced. So new hairs come out, and then they're replaced, and the old hairs will come out. So 100 per day is normal, but when this case happens, you can have 1,000 hairs that can come out per day. Let's just do the math. If that happens for 14 days, how many hairs? 14,000. 14,000 out of 100,000, that's a lot, right? So that becomes a percentage that you can start to see the visible hair loss rapidly, whereas this slow genetic hair thinning would have still taken time for her to see, okay? So great. So we noticed that she has both the type 1, and we'll write it down here. Just think immune is called alopecia areata. So this young lady is suffering from 2 types of hair loss. So we call it immune, right? Immune hair loss, which is alopecia areata, immune. And that's when the immune system just triggers a response and just ejects the hairs from the follicle, as opposed to the genetic hair loss, which is miniaturization over time, right? So this is more of the slower. This is what she said. She had a 10-year history, and we use the term miniaturization, okay? You would notice under the microscope empty follicles, right? Empty follicles because the hair fell out. It didn't miniaturize out, it fell out. And that's a good way for us to discern the difference of the patterns of hair loss. We can determine the patterns based on what we see in the office. And now, since we notice we have both, we'll then move on to blood work because we want to look at the genetic ratio that is causing the problem. So we'll go to the BRC. So this young lady came to see us, like I thought, 2 years ago. It was July 11, 2023. And then we have blood work follow-up from June 14, 2024. So about 11 months after, okay? So we will discuss the blood work from the beginning here when she came to see us. So first thing we look at is nutrition, right? Food can be protein, fat, and sugar. That's very important to your optimal health. So the sugar, remember, the A1C is a 90-day average. Then we have the protein and HDL. And the patient came in drinking a little bit of wine, eating a little bit of fruit, and fruit is sweet. So if it's sweet, it has sugar. So this level's 5.4. We want to be under 5.0, okay? Her protein, she was eating just several, she was so busy, she didn't have a lot of time to stop and eat. And she was at 6.8, and we need to be over 7.5. Hair is made of protein. the skin, collagen, largest organ of the body, made of protein, so we need a lot of it. So we gave her suggestions, recommendations to how to improve the protein, such as morning and afternoon snacks. We taught her how the small intestines can only absorb 6 to 10 grams of protein per hour. So if you're not eating protein every 3 hours, allowing the small intestines to absorb it, you're not going to be able to absorb the protein. HDL also, she was doing okay, 47, and our goal is over 60. So we gave her tips to increase this. We were shooting for over 60. And remember, HDL is found in avocados, found in tuna, also almonds, and cooking in olive oil. Okay, so these were our recommendations. She was doing the olive oil. She was also doing the, I think, tuna fish on occasion. Okay, great. So now the next thing is to look at her genetics. Okay, genetics have to do with the DNA she received from mom and dad. And a young woman is going to have the highest testosterone levels when they're young, and that level is going to go down just like men. So the first thing that was a giveaway was the low testosterone. For a 28-year-old, having a 26 is a low level of testosterone. We would expect this to be over 50. You see here 30, 40, even 50 at her age range. Remember, the enzyme is controlling which molecule is being produced. So the total comes in, and I'll teach you guys later how HDL fat turns into testosterone. So as she increases HDL, we would expect also an increase in the total testosterone. Now, the enzyme is what controls the amount of either the good testosterone, which is called free testosterone, or the bad testosterone, which has dihydro, 2 hydrogens added on it. So it's no longer free, it's bounded by hydrogen, which are free radicals. So it's obvious you want more of the good variant of testosterone than you do the bad. And it's obvious she's making 18 times more of the bad testosterone or the dihydro than she is the good one. We checked her estrogen level, which was normal for her age and the timing of her cycle. And then a lot of women come in and they are afraid that the thyroid is causing hair loss, and it causes hair to be too thin if it's a diseased type of condition. But that rarely ever happens. In the office in 20 years, I think I've seen one case in 20 years which had anything to do with the thyroid levels. So we check it just to monitor, and her levels came back therapeutic or normal. So once again, this was simply an enzyme causing the total testosterone in her body to be converted or changed into the dihydro versus the free testosterone. So we designed a formula for her, putting one molecule in the supplement to regulate the enzyme to take off the H's, the 2 H's, dihydro, and turn it into water. So we simply remove water from the equation. And by doing that, we allow the testosterone, the DHT, to turn into free T. Okay. So now, Tracey, we gave that to her. She came back in 11 months. We've got the new blood work. So now we're going to compare everything that we learned on the left to the right. Okay. So this is the before over here. And then after June 14, 2024. She took our advice, and good job for her. She's at 5.1, which she deserves a smiley face. She's close to the 5.0, which is where the athlete is. We asked, how did she do it? She cut down on the wine and the fruit, okay? And that makes all the difference. She used to drink orange juice, for example, so no more orange juice, okay? Protein, she started eating more often throughout the day, smaller meals, and now her protein's at 7.3. Once again, smiley face. The trend is in the right direction. Our goal is 7.5. So how did she do it? We talked about it more times. She's doing the AM and the PM snacks, and she used nuts for the snack, and it works great. Almonds, pistachios, cashews. That also would cause the HDL to rise. She's at 62 now. She added more avocados to the diet. So her nutrition has improved. So we would expect there's no reason for her not to be able to regrow hair because she has improved her nutrition. But once again, this is like the building blocks to build something, but the engineer or the architect or the one sending the signals to grow your hair is the genetics. So the signal to either grow or not grow comes from the DNA. So even if we optimized our nutrition, if we did not change, the signal still says hair shrink. So we had to first repair the nutrition and then the nutrition, the signal from the genetics. So what did the capsule do exactly? Everyone's worried about the side effects or what bad happens. And it's sort of, we teach them the first law of thermodynamics. And when you understand that principle, you understand that the only thing we can do with our supplement is turn DHT molecule into another molecule. And you can't turn a raisin into a Pinto car. You can simply turn the salt water into salt and water. So we take off the two H's from the dihydro, so we expect it to go down. So 19 turned into 2.1, which was the bad testosterone. And then by taking the two hydrogens off, we turned it into free testosterone, which we expected to go up, which increased from 1.1 to 2.7, right, which is 2.5 times higher. And then we did that by utilizing the total testosterone. We call it the bucket where it all sits. So the total testosterone now looks very normal and therapeutic for a young, healthy female. So we've got the right amount of total testosterone. We've got the right amount, the optimal amount of good testosterone. And the key, a lot of people think that hair loss is caused by DHT. Not really. It's kind of, but it also has to do with the free T, the total T, the estradiol, and the thyroid hormone and the PSA for a man also have a lot to do with it. So it's actually the ratio of the free testosterone to the dihydrotestosterone variant. Now, some people are taking the generic Dutasteride 0.5, which is the Avodart formula. We see some men come in taking that formula. And sometimes it will reduce the DHT, but it also, remember, that formula was developed to treat prostate cancer, and their goal was to decrease all of what's called the androgen hormones. So we had a young man in his 20s that came in with a total testosterone 300, and this level should have been probably over 800. So you have to be very careful of the formulas. It's not just the DHT level being 0. It's about you having enough DHT, but the number being lower than the amount of free T. And that's what changes the signal to the DNA inside the hair cell. So we're not changing genes. We're changing the cells, the signal to the genes inside the DNA. Okay.
And would
So
you
we
see
also,
those other ingredients on that formula? Like, are they required to tell you, or do they only have to tell you the right ingredient because that's the one that has a prescription?
so the question was if this is for anyone taking the generic version of
Correct.
Dutasteride. Well, simply
Yeah.
we can ask, and they legally have to tell you everything in the formula. But just be
Okay.
mindful the Dutasteride. So 0.5 milligrams is about the size of a tenth of a grain of salt. So if you've got
Right.
anything that's larger than a tenth of a grain of salt, your brain should register that there's more ingredients inside. And a lot
Yeah.
of times, big pharma put in what's called filler ingredients. And then when you're trying to develop a formula to have a certain outcome, which is decreasing all hormones in the body, they added certain ingredients. Butylated hydroxytoluene is one of them
Right.
that will deplete all of the hormones. So the
Right.
problem I have with that version is, where did the molecule go? With the first law of thermodynamics, it cannot just disappear, right? So they have the molecules being decreased, but they cannot show us where the molecules went. And that should concern people. Okay. So we looked at the BRC, the blood work before and after. Now, what did happen to the patient over the course of 11 months? So we saw the nutrition improve, the genetics improve. So we would expect that the genetic hair loss would improve. But what happened with those immune spots, those alopecia areata spots? This is where the topical comes into play. So what we did with the supplement was going to treat the hair loss that was genetic, and look how nice zone 1 now looks. And you guys will have to look at this online to be able to look at the before and after. But you'll notice here that zones 1 and 3 have really filled in nicely. Even the zone 2 is starting to fill in. And this would be the genetic hair loss that it reverses pattern. So as it was going one direction, it turned around and came the other direction. Okay. And this was as expected. And then the topical, we added an ingredient in the topical to treat primarily the areatas, which were the immune related hair losses. And we just simply used an ingredient that allows the immune system to decrease its overactivity. Okay. And by doing so, the hair cells go back to normally regrowing. So she did a great job, and we continue to see the hair regrow in the front over the next probably maybe 12 to 18 months. She should have an entire head full of hair. We're very happy with her.
Yeah. Let's look at both together actually, so you can really see.
Oh, wow. We're going to be able to
You
see
can
the
really see the
before and the
difference.
after. Here we go. Drum roll.
There we go.
All right. Look at this. This is great. Thank you, Tracey. Technology is great. So once again, we'll look at the areas of hair that were missing, and pretty obvious, right? They came back. And then you can see how nice zone 1 is really
Yeah.
growing in nicely. And even over here, zone 3, a lot of people, they don't even understand the zones of hair loss. Without understanding the zones, it would be very difficult to treat the hair loss. So 1 and 3 are doing great genetically. Zone 2 is doing great genetically. And then those 2 little spots up there in zone 4, right? In zone 4, she had 2 little areatas, and they're doing great. And she never had any problem with zone 5. We didn't see any problems with zone 5. So zones 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, we've got the immune hair loss up here in zone 4. And then we've got genetic hair loss. We talk about the guys' hairs are receding backwards. So do women, right? Same thing happens. And the cause is primarily the same as the men. It's an imbalance of the free T over the DHT ratio, which causes signal to the hair cell. Okay.
Yep.
All right. What a great case. Thank you very much, Tracey. And then maybe next week we can do a more complicated male case. I think you asked a question about the formula for the generic version. I had a case just came in. I don't have the pictures yet, but I've got the before the BRC on what it looks like when someone's taking a formula to decrease all the hormones. Okay. And then we file that case. And then once we get them on our formula, you will notice that we're going to decrease the DHT, but we'll increase the good testosterone found in a young man's body. So it makes him optimally healthy.
Perfect. Yeah, that would be great. I'm sure our viewers would love to see that.
All right. Stay tuned. We'll see you next week.